I don't think that mental health is prioritized enough for service members. We struggle. We definitely need more help in that department. I don't think that it's taken seriously enough. And I think that a lot of the time, that's why the suicide rate for service members is very high. They don't necessarily feel like they have the outlet to get the help that they need. My name is Nasera Robinson. I am a veteran, and I live with PTSD, anxiety, and depression. A lot of what I think was just a day-to-day for a service member, I think that I found that it was a struggle for me. And I think that with me coming on the ship with a lot of internal things that I suppressed, I think that it really kind of started to get louder and louder to me as I was on the ship alone. Spending 147 days without seeing a port, most of the time without a lot of light, natural sunlight, because I'm working most of the day. I don't get off work until, the end of the day. There's no lights, everything's dark. I think that, I struggled a lot. I came in when I was 18. I'm still kind of growing into who I am. A lot of my grown-up years were in the military. I was in the military for 7 years. So, I was trying to find myself in the midst of, being a service member and knowing at the end of the day that this is my job. But at the same time, suffering from insomnia, which you find that a lot of people are suffering from insomnia, or, just being depressed and sad and not necessarily wanting to be on a mission, but kind of wanting to get away from it. You don't come home the same person that you left as, especially when you do your first tour. After you do your first tour, it's like you kind of get used to some of the things. But, your very first tours, it can be kind of scary. It's new. You're away from your family. You're away from your friends for extended amounts of time. You're on a ship in bodies of water. You don't necessarily have service all the time. I couldn't necessarily reach out to my family whenever I wanted. We had, kind of hours where you would do that. You work 6 hours on and you have 6 hours off. So it's just kind of moving for 147 days, working 6 hours on and working 6 hours off, working 6 hours on, 6 hours off. It just does a lot to your mind. It's very industrial on the ship. It's very, plain. It's just gray paint. It's not a lot going on. Being on such a strenuous schedule, running drills, at 3 o'clock in the morning, or man overboard's just making sure, everybody's on the ship. You do have, members or sailors that are on suicide watch from just, being in that space where it's like, I need to get out of here. And I'm confined to the ship. I'm on this water. We don't have traffic lights in the water. It's dark. When it gets dark, it's pitch black. So you find that you do a lot of things that you wouldn't necessarily do when you're on a ship versus when you're on home. A lot of the time too, you really have a lot of time to think and dwell in a lot of the issues that you may have internally, because you're not getting off the ports. You're not necessarily having a lot of fun. And I think that a way that people kind of, handle that when they get off the ship is, drink until they can't drink anymore. Unfortunately, get back on the ship and just, do it all over. I come from a place of suppressing a lot of things. And when you spend so much time with yourself and you're in your head so much with just working, and you find that your mind just gets jumbled up. You think about things that you don't think you've ever thought about before. You know what I mean? You see those dark places there, and you look over to another service member or to your shipmate who's also kind of going through some of the similar things that you're going through. You create a family there, because we all kind of similarly have the same experiences. And I definitely have made a lot of friends that I feel like we almost kind of trauma bonded with, what I mean? We're going through the same things, we are working the same hours, we're, kind of getting the same kind of pushback from, your higher ups. You kind of go through those, those spaces where it's you don't necessarily feel like you're super appreciated, or you kind of go through a space where it's people don't see me. You know what I mean? They see me for what I can do for them, but they don't see me, crying out for help or me suffering. They're very much about mission. But I think that a really big thing that you find in the military is that a lot of the service members are at war with themselves. You know, a lot of people, are struggling. You know, a lot of people are anxious and upset and sad. I found a lady on the ship who's kind of like a fun boss that I found that I kind of could confide in about some things. But even then, you know, as far as like the mental health thing goes, I felt like there was only so many times I could say like, hey, you know, I'm actually having a day today. You know, I'm struggling, I can't really do it today. You know, asking to, you know, step out and maybe get checked on was kind of like not necessarily something that was like super praised, like, oh yeah, go take care of yourself. It was more something like, well, you know, we got work to do. You know, you can't find another time to do that. You know, so with that, it's kind of like you find that your voice is kind of quieted. Closer towards the end of my contract is when I really started to, you know, notice and realize like, hey, I actually have some issues. Like, I'm actually really struggling. I don't necessarily feel like I'm in a space to re-enlist. But by that time, I think I just was a lot more far gone than I thought that I was. You know, and then I feel like I also kind of struggled with, you know, at the same time, it's like, you know, I'm in the military and I have this routine, you know, so it's like, I decided to do what I felt like was best for me, which was get out, you know, and focus on myself, be around more people that I feel like love me, even though, you know, I did create a family within the organization. But at the same time, it was like, you know, I needed to be around more people that love me. But I felt like when I got out of the military, I felt like nobody understood me. You know, I felt like I struggled with that. And then I felt like part of me kind of wanted to be back with people that I felt like could understand me because yeah, it was really hard for me, I think. You know, I was very confused, and I think that I was very much going through a transitional depression of like routine versus, you know, you're free now, you can do what you want, but it's like, well, what do you do? When I came home from the military, I was struggling with transitional depression and anxiety, and I wanted to be involved with people who also are suffering with mental health, and I wanted to help. I didn't want people to feel like how I feel. So that's why I started kind of looking into organizations that I felt like had a lot of volunteer options for me to kind of get out in the community and talk about, you know, struggles and to kind of, you know, break the stigma and kind of normalize what it's like to feel these things and to know that we are all human and you're not a burden if you want to talk about those things or not. Especially in the Black community, I don't necessarily, I think that we more so really struggle with kind of expressing ourselves and saying like, hey, I'm actually going through this. We're very much like we don't cry, we just kind of work through it. And NAMI played a really big role in, you know, my success now in dealing with some of my everyday struggles with depression and anxiety. And they provided a lot of resources to me as far as seeking out a therapist that I actually liked and enjoyed. I feel like they feel like home. They kind of help, you know, they kind of find that problem or they kind of scratch that itch for you. And that's the best way that I could put it, you know. I feel like they understand and they provide so much support for you. You know what I mean? If you having issues in your family, they provide family support. If you're having issues with, you know, your friends, or if you're struggling, you feel like no one understands you, they have peer support. They have people who are actively in every area or facet trying to really kind of tackle this thing that seems so big sometimes. As a young person coming into the military, I would say that if they feel themselves slipping, then to get on top of it before it gets worse and it turns into something else. I would say to ask for help, and if it's not taken seriously, to continuously ask for help and to use your voice, because sometimes we have a way of quieting it down, because that mission comes first. But you're also equally as important as that mission, and your mental health, it matters. Seek out NAMI Homefront, who actively works with, veterans and military and trying to get their minds right, or Military One Source, who also offers, psychologies and free therapy sessions. Those things are important. Your mind is important. And not all the time when you get out of the military, you're okay. And you think that you are. If you don't feel okay, 9 times out of 10, you are not okay. And sometimes we actually have to take that initial push or that extra push to find help, because sometimes help always isn't going to come to you. The VA is always, an option, but also, outside sources or third parties like NAMI Homefront, who works with, military and veterans and helps with, getting your mental health and the importance of mental wellness together. I'm going to school for psychology with a concentration in staff psychology, military psych. NAMI appreciates me. They make me feel like I'm a part of a family. They just kind of took me in. It didn't, I applied for a couple of different organizations, including NAMI, and I felt like I wasn't really getting any responses, but it was really something that I wanted to do. Like, it was very important to me when I got home to work with a mental health organization, and NAMI called me right away and was like, let's get you in here, let's get you volunteering, let's get you out here speaking, to the community, about your experiences, let's save the world. And that's really how I felt. I genuinely feel like when I'm doing table events and volunteering with NAMI, I feel like I'm saving the world. I do.